Whoa, DraftScience video. Some sort of noise. Required a whoa, but we'll just not pay attention. Raccoons digging holes in the ceiling or something, who knows. But anyway, comment video. Yeah, it's just dismal. I don't think there's anything. I was going to do a summation on the gravitational waves, but I suppose why bother? Because it is a subject with which there's lots of layers to it in terms of the details of the interferometer and arguments you could be made about what signals are going to exist, and but one thing I thought of to another thing, just because the earthquake thing came up, and in the sense that they didn't counter argue why an earthquake wouldn't be a possibility for any of this stuff or movement in the earth. And the old seismographs, you sort of got the idea that earthquakes were, they built up, the signal, and then the real quake was a, the needle would go back and forth a lot. Yeah, high amplitude. But they have they do have a wave kind of way about them, or at least it's a wave when it ends up the movement or the sound travels through the earth. From the rocks moving, it does seem that it comes in waves of pressure. Which I haven't heard the argument why that's not a possibility as an explanation. Just movement in the earth. But anyway, I mean, there's we still don't really know what the center of the earth is even made out of in terms of the it could be doing its own solar flaring, so to speak, but whatever. So Sean Wilkerson. Alright, I just got to read this crap because I got no choice. So this was on a video about Tesla. Likely I was pointing out how Tesla wasn't the man they've made these whatever devotees are worshipping. But anyway. You stop the video every 2 seconds. Well, that's not true. I stop the video when there's a point made, and that's when I think you should stop a video, is when there's a counter argument to be made. This is one of the worst things that happens in any kind of debate. It's when you're debating with somebody and they start reaming off 3 or 4 or 6 or 7 arguments in a row, and then you're supposed to come back and you're supposed to somehow remember each one of those arguments, or you're supposed to counter argue each one of those arguments collectively, and that's just nonsense. So I think it makes perfect sense to make a point when it's time to make a point, when there's a statement being made and you have a counter argument to the statement. That's logical, asshole. Anyway, ease up. Use more professional language. Fuck you. Yeah. Is that professional enough? just fuck you. There. Is that better? And have a personable look, like Einstein. I mean, this whole idea that science comes with eccentrics. That's just the history of it. Okay, all the greats were eccentric people. Just get real. So whatever. Fuck you. You normal assholes are the ones that get in the way. You dumbass. You're the inferior form. Fuck. You don't act, seem, or sound intelligent by any means. Oh, and who's critiquing? yeah, imbeciles. You're going to demonstrate yourself to be an imbecile, a grand style imbecile, and so I should kind of think of you as a counter meter. That everything you say, the opposite is likely true. Anyway, I'm sorry, but I 100% disagree with your arguments. Well, I don't care. I mean, make an argument. The fact that you disagree is not meaningful information, especially if I already think you're an idiot. So you actually have to make arguments. Einstein was a money-hungry dirtbag, albeit a really good businessman. I don't know. Frankly, he did okay. But it was Einstein, he should have done okay. That stole most of the ideas from Tesla. Now that's just the most preposterous thing somebody could write. Because there's not really a single thing Einstein ever wrote as a sentence. You couldn't quote me the thing Einstein said that was a Teslaism. You just couldn't. Einstein didn't say much about electricity, frankly, and Tesla said nothing about anything else. Tesla was a one-trick pony. He was an electrician. And that was all he was. He didn't understand anything else in the universe. And he, I wouldn't say he got even electricity correct. He developed the ideas. What idea? That Edison applied them. Oh, I'm sorry, I said Einstein. Never mind. So he said Edison was a money-hungry dirtbag. That's an insane thing to say, because Edison nearly went bankrupt many times putting all of his money into his ideas. I mean, so he was just about in bankruptcy when he developed the light bulb, you idiot. So you're an idiot. I mean, it's idiotic to think of Edison as somebody who was in it for the money. It's ridiculous. Alright, well, anyway. He developed the ideas that Edison applied them to normal use. He didn't have anything to do with the movies, or the sound recorder, or certainly all the inventions before he showed up from Europe. He wasn't there for any of that, was he? No. I mean, it's just silly to think that Edison wasn't self-made. Frankly, it's silly. Alright, and Edison applied them to normal use. Well, yes, he worked for Edison. I don't know how you don't understand that, but here a guy comes from Europe with nothing, penniless, and without any other reputation besides Edison gets a letter from a guy who works for him in Europe saying, this guy's the smartest guy I know of. Now, that's it. And you think what? It was Edison's idea, it was Edison's responsibility to make him a partner or something? I mean, what's your thoughts here? That people who work for other people don't have any obligation to produce anything valuable? That somebody else the company gets to own it? That you go work at a company, develop something, and then you leave the company with what you developed at their expense. They train you, they provide you with the tools and equipment, and then you get to keep whatever they invent. You think that could work in the real world? Yeah, you're really dumb. Anyway, without Tesla, Edison couldn't be crap. Like I say, Edison was already the biggest, smartest inventor on planet Earth. Edison not only had places in America, it was already so well established. He had divisions in Europe. You idiot! What are you talking about? You see, I mean, how can you take you too seriously when you say something that's silly? The law of conservation of energy only states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And again, it's not really an important law in some senses, right? Because we're not going to be able to tell anyway, right? We're really not going to be able to measure if there's actually a way you could actually destroy it. We're not going to really know if there is one. Anyway, that doesn't mean that energy cannot be gathered by such simple means that more energy is gained than used to gather that energy in the first place. Well, who argued anything otherwise? What, did I argue that oil isn't in the ground and that the energy wasn't gained over millions of years, hundreds of millions of years of solar energy, basically trapped in a form that's easily exploited? Of course, that's exactly what I've been saying. But what you can't do is extract energy that isn't stored, that isn't in the battery form. So it has to be in the form of chemical energy, or like, the tides in a sense, or the gravitational forces. And you can take advantage of those because they do wave. The wave thing does create that opportunity. But there aren't too many things you can exploit for free. That provide enough energy for how much energy it takes to extract it, unless it's in some sort of battery form. I mean, even solar energy is, like I said, it's coal and oil and gas have stored you know, zillions of hours of sunlight, where, you know, the sun tomorrow when it shines for a square meter is only going to produce 1,000 watts of electricity. It's just not much, and that's if you get every bit of it. So anyway, 100 watts of energy. Alright, anyway. Let's see, this is where the idea is coming from. Well, it's not what Tesla's idea was. Tesla believed in an ether, and he believed that in that ether you can create disturbance, okay, without providing any energy. You know, he thought you could frictionlessly send power other places, you know, through an atmosphere. It's just insane, frankly. Let's see. Not that he simply creates energy, but that he gets it for cheaper than it's worth. Well, again, how do you do that? How do you create electricity cheaply first? Now, if he was, you know, he played around with this, you know, these giant lightning bolts, creating them. What he maybe should have played around with was trying to figure out a way of storing lightning. I mean, that would have been a great blessing to humanity if he could have figured out how to build a battery that could actually store lightning. Anyway, kind of like pirating an app, but good. You know, whatever. It's not really a theft. You're not cheating the system by exploiting what exists as a source. So I'm saying that, but they're not going to be magical sources of energy. Well, like I say, nuclear is pretty magical. You can get a huge amount of energy, nuclear, and but the limitation is we can't, you know, we haven't devised a system of exploiting that energy that's fail-safe enough yet. Energy is, by definition, unlimited. Well, I think it's, of course, limited to the amount in the universe, but I would agree that certainly if you can do nuclear safely, there's more than enough to go around. We do not know the full extent of the size of the universe, therefore it cannot know how much energy actually occupies it. Again, yes, but there's no reason to presume it's infinite either, so there's no point in narrowing it or expanding it. There's no point in even suggesting or even playing with any idea of infinity. Why play with it? Why even bother? Clearly, one apple tree has enough nuclear energy in it to run the world for thousands of years. Theoretically, attaining energy out of nowhere is possible. Well, no, it isn't. But the method to do it hasn't popped up. Well, it's a silly sentence. Out of nowhere doesn't make any sense. You have to derive the energy out of something that has energy in it, whether you've captured sunlight in mirrors or something, or whether you know, empty space. You can't pull energy out of empty space. Can't do that. This is all just like Einstein theorized black holes. Well, technically he didn't theorize them, he just opened the door to them. That's what a gravity well does, and because there's no stopping how deep you go. Back then the scientific community was astonished and baffled. I think Einstein was baffled by some of what people conjured up. But half a century later we found it to be true. Well, you found it to be true. I haven't found it to be true. The same goes for Tesla. Well, I don't think there's anything Tesla talked about that hasn't already been substantially disproven as a possibility. Sending any substantial amount of energy through an atmosphere isn't never going to work. So I think you're really out of luck. There's just no theoretical grounds for the complex chemistry of the atmosphere to do anything but burn, to create a lot of heat and friction to the transmission efficiently of any kind of substantial amount of force. So I don't think that'll ever happen, silly person. Anyway, he's a misunderstood man who achieved a lot. Misunderstood how and why? He wrote nothing useful. Okay, I mean He wrote a short, brief history of his life where he put a few of his ideas in it, but that's all there was. There wasn't much. There's just very little Tesla out there to examine. So whose fault is that? I mean, he had plenty of time in his later life to write something, and he didn't. If Jimmy, bright insight, is spreading propaganda because it's information you don't agree with, well, I wouldn't call it propaganda if it wasn't lies. So what I'm saying is the information he was spreading wasn't just wrong, it was overtly wrong. Then doesn't that, I mean, it's just not true. Okay, there were non-facts in what he was saying. Then doesn't that mean by your own definition that you were spreading propaganda? Why? Because you don't believe it? No, that doesn't bother me at all. I'm saying I can make arguments demonstrating, and I did make arguments in the video, demonstrating how what he was saying was incorrect. It wasn't the truth. So you can deny the facts if you want to. You want to think Tesla invented the talking machine? Go ahead and think that. You're wrong, and it's going to be proven that you're wrong, but go ahead and think it. I don't care, dumbass. I don't agree with you. I don't really give a shit what you do. So I read it, so I'm deleting it. That's my response to it. Anyway, haha, you should never have, this is Tony Michael. Haha, you should never have let those trolls talk you into changing your mind. So this is on a video, I think, on the relativity crap in terms of the speed of light, motion, and shit. I didn't change my mind. I conceded that I can't prove that if I move a laser beam at the speed of light, it doesn't bend the direction they say. I can't prove it, because I can't move the speed of light to prove they're full of shit. So I'm just saying I can't defeat their argument with what I thought was an indestructible proof that it theoretically can't be possible. So that's all I conceded, is that I don't have the argument to prove that it's theoretically impossible what they're saying. I don't think it has any chance of being the truth. So I never changed my mind, idiot. You were right before. Of course a regular baseball carries a perpendicular velocity. Well, it doesn't carry it for very long, is the point though. The accelerations combine like water and water. Okay, they combine really easy. So, acceleration blends into velocity, let's say, really quickly. And it becomes, eventually, very quickly it becomes one directional vector. So you start to lose you lose all references except however you've drawn your frame of left, right, up, down, forward, back. You can keep your frame, but the fact is the baseball isn't going to be moving both ways. It's going to just be moving one way. And its speed will reflect the fact that those two speeds have been merged, because its speed will be less than the combination of the two speeds. So if I added the two speeds, the line would be longer than the actual line when they're combined. So if a baseball is going 60 miles an hour this way and I hit it 40 miles an hour that way, it's not going to be going 100 miles an hour in the new direction. Anyway, I noticed that he, wait, I'll back up here. Sorry, I'm tired again. Yeah, it's just the way it happens. It's turned out. Yeah, let's see. Of course, the regular carry perfect. Okay, but if we were talking about light, which obviously cannot do this without breaking light speed consistency, then the angle between the laser and the window is increasing with respect to time. Well, again, their theory is that this is one of these Einstein relativity things, this headlight effect, and that everything starts pointing in the direction of the velocity. So, that's just what they say happens. I can't disprove it because I can't move anything fast enough to prove that's bullshit. So the light would have to travel in a parabola to reach the window. Um, that's part of the tricky arguments of these kind of things. I don't think it would have to, because of time dilation. Whatever. I don't want to do that argument again. I already did all that shit. It's a dry hole in my opinion for now. So, fuck it. I think they're wrong. I think the idea of light moving forward at the same speed and all that bullshit is bullshit. I don't think there is, your change in perception can't make light move forward and bounce off mirrors in the future. No, can't do any of that shit. Alright, Tony Michael. I noticed that the likes to dislikes ratio is 3 to 14. As in 3:14. Oh, interesting. Which is interesting to me because that asshole you used to argue with had that as his channel. Yes, Piro. I would tend to be suspicious of things like this. How can there be so many people watching this channel just to thumb stuff down? I smell desperation. Well, it just comes out of the fact that this channel is an offshoot of the Amendum channel, which is an old and controversial channel. Creates many haters because it's philosophy, and it's not a philosophy that has much respect for assholes. And so all the assholes are butthurt, and they don't have any fair game to play because they're all weaselly losers that can't make an argument. And so all they have is their little downvoty thing. That's all they got left. That's all they have left in their life. I mean, they also type obscene nonsense and drivel, but beyond that, they just don't have anything. Anyway, William Jefford said to that, "You're right. This person doesn't have nor deserve any fucking attention." Edit. Fixed it even further. I don't know what that... Alright, well, I didn't finish the whole thing. Suspicious. How can there be so many people? Okay, yeah, I smell desperation. And he said, of course, I fixed it by thumbing up this fantastic video. And so I don't even know what this other guy's point was. You're right. This person doesn't have nor deserve any fucking attention. I don't even know what that means. But I imagine these are Ken Wheeler videos, so... Since I read them, I think I'll just delete them. This, of course, seems the rational thing to do. I don't think they're useful in terms of providing any complimentary questions or answers. Hello, D viewers. Whatever, this is Colossus Mianis, something, I don't know. Asshole butt wipe. That's what I'll call them. The holographic quanta. I mean, it's just amazing what people think they can just say, like it's like saying bubblegum. No, you can't say something like holographic quanta. Who says there's such a thing? Are all aligned, but what decides the polarity? Still nothing. Well, if they're holographic, I guess there could be all kinds of things that are deciding it, because holograms are very complicated, idiotic, and, you stupid fuck. Well, anyway, still nothing. The terminals. I don't know what terminals are. The instant of the magnetization. I don't know. When positive charge and negative charge are shunned in opposite directions by an electric current, question mark. I mean, you're not even asking questions I can even have any hope of figuring out what the hell you're even asking. So what is that? A history? I don't know what that means. Flummoxing? There aren't rational explanations, only useful ones? What the fuck is that shit? No, there's lots of unuseful facts. And some of them you can be very grateful to be aware of. Frankly, I'd rather have the right answers than the wrong answers, idiot. I don't give a fuck about how useful they are. So, fuck you, you're stupid. Anyway, and then he added a comment to his own comment. A current in a superconductor, penetration depth. A current in a superconductor penetration depth, that's what it says, stimulated by quantum oscillating magnetic field, has an opposing MF. Yeah, well, so does a non-superconductor, idiot. So what's the superconductor got to do with it? If the current flipped to attraction as it ought to, it would be repelling again, sadly. I don't know what that could possibly mean either. It has to flip for some reason. It has no inverse of counter space, question mark. No structure, question mark. Fuck you. I just can't make anything useful out of that crap. This is what Ken Wheelers of the world do to people. You know, they start using words, they just have no hope of having any rational definition. But this is just, you know, this is just so dismal. I mean, as comments, these are just so bizarrely unrelated to anything said in the videos. Alright, so this is Dave Binks, a skunk of a human. I think that's his height, kind of some sort of back-assward skunk monster or something. When an observer looks at a magnet, there is a red shift at one pole and a blue shift at the other. No, there isn't. So that's just nonsense. So that's a Ken Wheelerism. He says he sees this in his ferrocell, which, let's understand, is got about 3/4 of an inch of glass. You know, it's 2 layers of really thick glass. Anyway, I just point that out, you know, optical glass, because that sort of, you can create prisms with a fluid and glass. You can create prisms. But anyway, one pole is blue shifted at the other. Even though the magnet is not moving away or getting closer, it's just on the orientation of the magnet which side you're looking at. Yeah, again, the angle you're looking at something will decide whether you see the red light or the blue light in a prism also. It has nothing to do with shifting the color. It just has to do with the fact that you're seeing the light as it's being diffracted. Alright, it's just on the alternative of the magnet if you're looking at, for example, north side, south side, then therefore nothing is really expanding or contracting. If you're only observing is the north-south of the magnetic field, question mark. So again, there's no way to know what the hell that was as a question. A magnet only has one-way traffic of its field. It doesn't have any traffic. This whole idea that there's some great deal of movement going on inside a magnet, I think, is just nonsensical. It's arrangements of the structure of the protons and the electrons that are just filtering the same, you know, force as gravity, and polarized, segregating. One kind of force on the north, one kind of force on the south. The two forces repel each other. Game over. I mean, they repel their likes and they attract to their dislikes because of the creation of pressure and the absence of pressure. But anyway, alright, let's see. A magnet only has one-way traffic of its field, and this is why two norths or two souths repel each other, because the field is only going one way. Did you watch the link I posted for the visualization of a magnetic field on one of your other videos? Oh, I thought that was a joke. Yeah, it's a little 1-minute video of Ken Wheeler's hyperberloidy spirograph little, you know, ferrocell pattern. And that somehow indicates how magnets work again. Just absolutely no way to see that. Why doesn't Ken put 2 magnets under there and show how they attract? And then they could turn them around and show how they repel. How they do it. Anyway. if you look at it from this point, then maybe the universe isn't expanding if the observer is only looking at the red-blue shift of magnetism, stars, question mark. They're two different subjects. I mean, you know, color isn't, because you see something having its color altered, doesn't, like a rainbow, that's not redshift. I think this theory has definitely some validity. What do you think, Gary? No, I think it's imbecilic for you to think that this device has any kind of legitimacy in showing you the truth. Now, if I took a piece of glass and I just smeared the ferrofluid on top of it and I put it over a magnet, it'll do what we traditionally understand. Okay, the fluid will be attracted because the fluid turns into a bunch of little magnets. The little magnets move because of the pressure, and they find an orientation where their pressure is balanced. That is the effects of the force. And the ones in the middle are going to be trying to go straight up because there's complete invisibility to their south end, so to speak. They don't stick it out, so it doesn't get hit by anything. It's hiding behind their north end or the south end. So they line up, and everywhere there's a little bit of leakage is where the lines start to bend, because now the little magnets are feeling both field energies from the south pole. So you can sort of understand, if the magnet's a straight line, north, south, north, that if I'm out here, there's still some south that can get to me. But if I'm here, right in the middle of the north, there's no south that can get to me, so I can only arrange in one direction. It's kind of obvious, you know. But anyway, so yeah, I think your comment is not relevant. I'll say that. You have to explain how something moves, and there's no explanation of the actual process of obliging the atoms inside of a magnet to move towards another magnet, or for those atoms to move away from each other. You don't have any description of any force that's doing that, any mechanical process. Alright, nice rename of dumb dementals of physics. Yeah, so yeah, I agree. It is the dumb dementals. Let's see, John Adams. So he has a, he posts a time code, and then he says the math is for the relationships between physical objects. Well, I'd say that was true if that's what all the math was, but a lot of math isn't describing the relationships that exist, it's projecting relationships that don't exist. So, but whatever. So then some guy with just numbers as a name. Correct, the Dr. Quantum videos are just intended to misrepresent physics, such that it can be used as evidence for fictitious notions of gods and spirits. Well, the problem is the misrepresentations aren't that far off from what the physicists themselves are doing. So that's the scary part. The physicists are watching the Dr. Quantum video going, oh yeah, oh yeah, I remember that experiment, when the experiment never happened. I've had to argue this with people, that the experiment never happened, and they say, oh yes it did, and you say, well, wouldn't there be somewhere we could find a piece of evidence for it? And I had to actually argue it, you know. Anyway, emergence sounds just like a shadow of a privation of light. Yes, well, that's the scientific Lee guy. Good, you one comment, good. Good for you. Yeah, so here's the Dave Blinks guy. Well, it can't be Blinks, it's Binks. Anyway, so this is where he posts a link to the silly video. Guess I could play it, it's not very long. I thought it was a joke. So where does it do all this? This whole This whole idea that there's this stuff going on, how does that make two magnets repel or two magnets attract? How does any of this crap do any of that stuff? And how does it explain Maxwell's equations? And how does it explain the movement of electricity? And it just doesn't do it. And these curved lines, again, these only exist in a ferrocell. They only exist when you take big, thick pieces of glass, shove ferrofluid behind it, and compress them. And then play this game with LED light shooting through the big, thick pieces of glass and reflecting off of the places where the ferrofluid collects. You know, reflecting off the outside of where the fluid collects. But that's all. This has also been, I don't remember this being part of Ken's actual images here, so this brighter center was added, I guess. But anyway, so that's all this is. It's a minute of this drivel. That doesn't have anything to do with the 9 million other ways you observe magnetic fields that don't have anything like that in them. Because that's just distortion. That's not seeing the truth, that's seeing perversion of the truth. So, but, you know, that's what people want. They want to see Jeebus in their French toast. I guess that's enough. I probably should draw something or model, but it just, you know, heart's not in it. The audience is too stupid. I don't think there were anything other comments worth anything. See if there's anything. Oh, dirty old coyote. Might as well get to that one. Alright. Sorry, I didn't realize I had more to go. Anyway, let me get this straight. So he posted this on my channel page, so these comments aren't even on a video. So I don't understand why he's doing this. I don't know what this is. Let me get this straight. 1. Subatomic particles are bound together by gluons. Question mark. No, I mean comma. And then he goes to 2. So that is grammatically confusing. Anyway, yes, so what you're arguing, the standard model, and you're going to query what, my audience on their understanding of it, something? I don't know what this is for. For whose attention this is. Number 2, two planets are not pulled together by forces within their atoms. Two planets are not pulled together by forces within their atoms. I don't believe that, and the standard model doesn't believe that. I mean, they think it's some sort of medium or something, some ethery field, you know, but it's not pulled together by the forces in the atoms, no. Planets are pushed together through a gentle wooing of directions between photons and the electrons within the atom of the planets. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Well, I understand photons are, the entire electromagnetic spectrum is made of photons, and clearly they play a part in the interactions between protons and electrons. Alright, but anyway. So gluons only bind at close range if gravity is not the accumulated activity of photons, then what? I mean, how do you even write crap like this and think that's a question worth answering? Is it the surrounding frequency and not particle interaction that brings two planets together? How would a frequency have anything to do with anything? Does frequency even work that way? I don't know. I've never seen a pull frequency, but whatever. You don't need a frequency to push, obviously. I don't know what a frequency would have to do with anything. This is too weird. So I'm just going to delete that for being too weird. So his other comment is, maybe you can shed some light on this subject, question mark. I've reached the end of my perception of physics and can't understand whether gravitational lensing is caused by electron activity interfering with the path of the photons, or is deflected photons proving that there is a fabric like Higgs field to space itself. There's two kinds of lensing, okay? So you got the close lensing, solar lensing or something, and then you have these distant galactic lenses that are billions of light years across, you know, big, huge, long paths of the lensed light. So it's difficult to answer a question like that just because the two are so obviously different. Obviously, in the corona of the sun is huge, like almost at least 3/4 the diameter of the sun itself. So anything in that, any light passing through that energy field would likely be, in my opinion, diffractable, scatterable. So certainly you can deflect light that way, shorten its path, or however you want to look at it, change its path, because there's a lot of physical particles in the energy around the sun. Now, galactic stuff, you'd say, now can't be really much stuff in there. You can't use that as an excuse, and it certainly wouldn't line up in such a way as to create an image over such vast amounts of space. So the vastness of the distance, the hugeness of the size of the lens, would preclude any kind of even distribution of a material that could create the images they're saying are lensed images. So I don't think you could use any kind of particle explanation or excuse for them, anything interfering. I think they're just some other aberration of the process of doing their technical telescopery. You know, anyway, everything on the internet wants you to believe in connecting fabric that cannot be proven. Well, it should be provable, and like their lensing, the problem is their evidences of this have these huge inconsistencies. So there's huge gaps in it's not a coherent model, because what they say exists has a consequence, and the consequences don't exist. And the absence of those consequences means there has to be something wrong with their theory. Pretending space is a fabric like to visualize gravity effects is not understanding gravity, and I don't understand it. Well, clearly they have an idea, and they're trying to make it, they're trying to mold the evidence to fit it. And so part of that is using these tricks of you know, models that are conducive and easy to understand, but they cheat the reality substantially. So anyway, I don't really understand why those are on my channel page, and so I just don't understand that. Alright, so somebody posted the name Leonardo, so apparently I said Leonardo's name wrong or something, I don't know, but whatever. Thank you for doing the right thing. Somebody stand up to that charlatan. That's no doubt Ken. The Veritas guy is notorious for bringing up the most mental masturbatory science out there. Isn't Bill Nye his mentor? Well, I wouldn't say a lot of his videos are interesting. I mean, they do provide they have educational value, and they're not too bad. But clearly, yes, he's just a mouthpiece for the standard model bullshit. Alright, Maxim guy posts a couple of comments, but those are usually good comments, so I won't read those. Why are you tolerating commercials in 2017? Is it because you never heard of uBlock? Well, there's even AdBlocker is a lot more famous than uBlock. But haven't you ever heard that it doesn't matter whether I use it, because the company has already spent the money on the advertising? Fact is, I'm going to be paying for the ads. Whether I see them or don't see them isn't going to make any difference. They're going to pay for it anyway. And that means the consumers are going to pay for it anyway. And it'd be nice if you're going to argue against it, which I think is worth arguing, that you would provide this alternative financing method, because I'd be interested in hearing what your ideas are on how content should be financed. So, heard of uBlock Origin, or have no idea what the fuck you're doing. Well, I do understand what I'm doing. I want to know who's paying what advertisers. That's good information to have. So, my problem with advertising is not that I have to watch it. My problem with advertising is everybody has to pay for it. That means I have to pay for the ads other imbeciles click on. That's my problem with it. My problem is that I never buy anything advertised ever. And most of the time, advertisements only piss me off and make me less likely to buy a product. I mean, I will never buy from 1-800 Mattress, for example, because their commercials are so fucking annoying. Or, oh, Sleep Member. No, that's the one. Sleep Member. Yeah. No. If my car's if the brakes go on my car and I have a choice, I can drive into Sleep Member, okay, or run over a rat, I'll drive into Sleep Member. Fuckers. But anyway, fuck you. That's my advice to you. Go get fucked badly. Do you think that the behaviors, properties of tons have been shaped by a selection process? If so, then shouldn't we expect that new types of tons were to rise, albeit possibly over vast periods of time? And if you don't think so, why not? Same reason that sperm don't change. See, most organisms, the males produce this sperm stuff, and generally speaking, it's all the same. Except DNA is different, but the little critters are all the same. They don't ever develop any new tools like machine guns or any. I'm going to kill those other sperm. I'm going to get spears or spikes, or I'm going to win, because see, they don't have any DNA of their own, so they have no evolutionary record. There's just no way to reward the winner by having his genes get replicated, because the same genes that made him made the other billion of sperms that he's competing with. See, there's no difference between the winner's genes and the loser's genes. It's exactly the same genes, so there's no way for it to evolve. And the same problem happens to matter or protons or all these things, because they don't replicate. There's no reward. Surviving doesn't mean their form wins and now will be made more. It just doesn't, because they aren't copied like a Xerox machine. There's no reward for winning. There's no replication reward for winning. So for evolution to work, there has to be a reproductive reward. Alright, could that also fall back on what you were saying about dominoes? So this is a guy who puts a time code again and then asks a question like, I'm going to go back to a video that who knows how old it is. First I have to go back to the video page because I'm on the comment page, so I don't, and then I have to go to the time code on that page and play the clip so that I can understand this question. I'm not doing any of that shit. I mean, really, just, time codes are nice. You want to leave a time code, but quote what you're responding to. Because there's just no point in thinking that the only people that should go back are the people who want to know more. But you should provide enough information that the question can be understood in the context. So anyway. Didn't the LIGO prove Einstein's theory? Well, that's what they claim, but obviously I would argue that no, they didn't, because Einstein disputed that it was possible to detect these waves, and he certainly didn't theorize any possibility of converting solar masses into gravity radiation. And you know, they call it gravity radiation, and yet they model it as a contraction and an expansion. You know, as if you're playing a xylophone or something. How does this make the Earth move into the sun? You get me? I mean, if the sun is producing contraction and expansions, how does that attract the Earth? Does that make any sense to anybody? I mean, it's just bullshit. Alright, anyway. I mean, at minimum, it has to be just contraction and then relaxation, and then contraction and relaxation. So that, you know, you could understand. Right? I mean, that could move something. But again, what's doing the contracting? You know, who's pulling the contraction levers? Who's spinning the contraction gears? Let's see, Gary, you didn't like my question about, this is Bob Hicks, about where force comes from, but I never liked it either, but it does nag at me sometimes. Well, that's okay for you. I'm just explained why I don't find it at all interesting, and I find it a huge distraction from what I'm attempting to do, which is talk about the physics we can know. And so you got to understand why it kind of pisses me off that you're dragging up subjects that really aren't the subject. Big bangers like Lawrence Krauss insist it all started with nothingness. Well, Lawrence Krauss is a douche, and yeah, it's not saying anything. It's just saying, well, nothing is obviously a word, and it has letters in it, so nothing must be a something because it's words. I see it written right there, nothing. So nothingness must be something because I can see it. Some kind of, you know, that's his logic. And that the nothingness did something, and bang, case closed. You say bullshit, and you say it has no bearing on today's reality. I don't even say bullshit. I just say there's no way of knowing. I mean, realistically, until we get a much clearer view of mechanics, it's just not a subject within reach. So why waste time on something we can never understand? Question mark. Okay, but what we can understand is what you call tons, I believe. Well, I've changed it to two things. Force bits, okay, that'd be all the tons, and matter bits, electrons and protons. I believe everything is made up of force bits, he says tons, in different levels of quanta, using your terms. It's not levels, it's only two levels, blue and red, or this way and this way. There's just two polarizations. There's two kinds of force bits, just two. That's all. Gravitons are at the smallest level. No, they're just ones without a frequency. Exactly the same as photons. The photons come at a reliable frequency, and electrons detect that frequency. That's the difference. Gravitons, no frequency. No detection by electrons. Alright, are the smallest level. Protons are the biggest. Well, what are you saying all this stuff for? Whose benefit? Obviously I disagree. I already have a complete theory, and it doesn't do any of this stuff. Protons are bigger yet, and are at the core of all matter. Well, I would agree that the protons are bigger, and the neutrons are even bigger because they have an electron stuck on them. But anyway, maybe there are tons even smaller than gravitons. Again, they're all the same size. They move the speed of light. All this stuff moving the speed of light has exactly the same quanta value. That is, it's all the same. So every single one of them is identical. Things like quarks are silly names, or mesons or bosons, but that's beside the point. Well, I'd certainly say it's beside the point. These are things that only exist in fractions of a second in accelerators, not in reality. Where and how it all began is unknowable, and I don't really care either, but you just keep harping on it. But I think all tons are created in nuclear furnaces, Well, frankly, there's no such thing as a nuclear furnace without the tons in the first place. So I think nuclear furnaces are created by tons, actually. The sun and other stars, quasars, supernovae, and such, there is never-ending supply of them. Well, I don't think they're being made. They're just being released. They were condensed into those furnaces. Furnaces were nothing, and then they condensed a bunch of the little shit, and the little shit formed into electrons and protons. That's why it's good to get rid of the ton word. It's because it makes the matter bits sound like the force bits, and they're nothing